You probably imagine the Mongols as unstoppable horsemen, thundering across the plains and toppling kingdoms with terrifying speed. For a century, that image was mostly true. The empire founded by Genghis Khan stretched wider than Rome ever dreamed. His descendants ruled from the Black Sea to the Yellow River. Yet, even dynasties built on fear and conquest can crumble in silence. Sometimes, it takes only one blade at the right moment. Our story begins in the late 14th century, inside the Yuan Dynasty of China. This was the Mongol Dynasty founded by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis. At its height, it ruled over tens of millions of subjects, blending steppe traditions with Chinese imperial rituals. But by the 1360s, its glory had dimmed. Famines swept the land, taxes soared, rebel armies rose from the countryside, and at the center of this storm stood a single man, Toghon Temür, the last Yuan emperor. He had inherited the throne as a teenager. His court called him the Heavenly Mandate, but most of his reign was marked by retreat. He rarely appeared in public, preferring the seclusion of his palaces. Ministers whispered about his inaction. Ordinary people cursed his name. Still, he held the title of Great Khan, a direct descendant of Genghis himself. The dynasty's fate seemed tied to his life. But the world was shifting. A rebel leader named Zhu Yuanzhang, born a peasant and once a Buddhist monk, had risen to power in the south. His armies swelled with those who had nothing left to lose. City by city, he drove the Mongols back. In 1368, he captured the Yuan capital of Dadu, what we know today as Beijing. Toghon Temür fled north, riding away from the grandeur of the Forbidden City before it was even built. He would never set foot there again. In exile, the emperor's life grew smaller. He ruled in name, but his territory shrank to the steppes of Mongolia. From the outside, it looked like a quiet decline, but inside his court, tensions boiled. Rival factions vied for power. Generals fought among themselves, and someone, we still don't know who, decided that the only way forward was through blood. Toghon Temür's son, Ayushiridara, was ambitious. Some chronicles say he pressed his father to abdicate. Others claim he schemed in the shadows, waiting for weakness. The records are frustratingly vague, as if the scribes themselves were afraid to put the truth in ink. What we do know is that Toghon Temür never formally abdicated. Instead, he vanished from history with a whisper. One account tells us he was quietly executed, strangled by his own attendants in 1370. No battlefield, no ceremony. Just a final breath stolen in the dark. His killers did not carve their names into history. They left only a gap, an unanswered question. Who gave the order? Some historians argue it was his son. Others think a minister feared the dynasty's survival depended on removing a weak ruler. Still others wonder if it was simply the chaos of civil war when loyalties flipped overnight. The truth is blurred, and maybe that is the most revealing fact of all. A man who once ruled half the known world disappeared in uncertainty, as though history itself decided to erase him. Meanwhile, Zhu Yuanzhang declared himself emperor of a new dynasty, the Ming. He presented himself as a restorer of Chinese traditions, sweeping away the foreign conquerors. In propaganda, he painted the Mongols as cruel outsiders, unfit to rule. The mysterious death of Toghon Temür only made the story cleaner. A vanished emperor, a fallen dynasty, a new order rising. But if we pause here, away from official chronicles, another thought lingers. What must it have felt like to be Toghon Temür in those final days? To be born into the line of Genghis Khan, raised in palaces, surrounded by gold and ritual, only to end in flight, fear, and silence. He had inherited the vastest empire the world had ever seen, yet he could not hold a single capital. In the end, his killers didn't even think him worth a public death. The Yuan dynasty lived on in fragments. In Mongolia, some loyalists continued to recognize Ayushiridara and his descendants as Khans. But in the eyes of China, the dynasty was finished. The mysterious execution of Toghon Temür was the hinge of that story, the quiet end of one world and the dawn of another. And here's the strange irony. The Mongols, who had terrified the world with their thunderous cavalry, were undone not by armies alone, but by something much smaller, intrigue in a chamber. the tightening of a rope, the breath leaving one man's lungs. We remember the Mongols for conquest, but their dynasty in China ended in silence, with an emperor whose death is still debated. Was it murder? Was it illness? Was it betrayal by his own blood? We may never know. And maybe that is why this story matters. Power can collapse not with a bang, but with a whisper. And even the mightiest empire can fade into shadows, leaving us to wonder who truly wrote the last line.